I dropped to my knees on the stained carpet of a cheap motel and prayed, really prayed, for the first time in my life. During the early 90s, I lived in San Diego, making a living working for some shady people. I had a reputation as a driver that could be trusted. If you needed someone behind the wheel who didn't ask any questions, you'd call me. I convinced myself that I showed up to drive, and anything outside of that wasn't my business or my responsibility. Was I dropping off 3 beefy guys with baseball bats at the house of someone who owed their boss money? Sure, but I didn't go inside with them, so it wasn't my problem what they did while I waited to drive them home. I would drive trucks across town without asking what I was hauling, even if I heard strange noises coming from the back. I thought my ignorance would protect me if anything went down. I got paid and that's all that mattered, until it didn't. I got called about picking up a load from the waterfront. The guy who contacted me had a bit of a reputation as a hothead, but the pay was good, so I agreed. I didn't realize until we were on our way that they planned to hijack a truck from customs and make off with its contents before they went through inspection. That really seemed to be the extent of the hothead's plan. He said that he and his guys would deal with any security, and I only had to worry about the driving. I should have forced them to let me out right then, but I didn't. Well, the hothead's plan was even less thought out than I imagined. They managed to get us into the customs area, then all hell broke loose. Security guards showed up almost instantly. Both sides drew their guns, so I made a run for it. I could hear shots behind me. In seconds, I went from being an accessory to theft to an accessory to attempted murder, or actual murder, depending on the hothead and his friend's aim. By the time I got back to my place, I was freaking out. The cops would be after me soon, and so would Hothead's crew for running out on them. So I used a stolen credit card to book a flight to Baltimore. It was the earliest departure that wouldn't set off any red flags, and since I didn't know anyone in Baltimore, no one would look for me there. When we landed, I found a cheap motel that took cash, but you get what you pay for. The place was trash with thin walls and thinner pillows. I was paranoid that the hothead's crew or the police would catch me if I went out, so I stayed in my room with the curtains closed. I slept most of the time and lost track of how long I was there. That's when I started hearing voices through the vents. 2 men, to be specific, arguing with each other. I couldn't hear every word, which made it even worse. My mind kept trying to piece together the conversation, but I heard them mention Jesus and salvation, which drove me crazy. Mostly because I was scared to death. If the police found me, I was going to go to jail for a while. If I was found by the hothead or his crew, I would vanish forever. While I paced the room, the arguing voices got louder. I could tell they were talking about God and finding peace through Him. That's when I dropped to my knees in that crummy motel and began to pray. I hadn't prayed in ages, not real prayer. I might have mumbled to God about something I wanted or for help out of a jam. In that moment, I laid everything out to Jesus. I took responsibility for what I'd done in the past, for the crimes that I was part of but had denied responsibility because I was, quote, just the driver. I called out that if Jesus could save me from this situation, I would dedicate my life to Him. The only thing I wanted in those moments was another chance, a chance to be different. Then, I heard a voice respond. Hello? I nearly jumped out of my skin. I glanced around the cramped motel room until I realized the voice had come from the vent. A minute later, I heard a knock on the door. I peeked out the window, expecting the police, but it was 2 men in normal clothes glancing around at the building. They seemed harmless enough, so I opened the door. The 2 men apologized for disturbing me and explained that they were staying in the room next to mine. They were concerned after hearing strange things through the vent and came to check on me. They mentioned that they were in town for a church conference and admitted that they may have been talking a bit loud themselves. I must have looked like a mess because the 2 men invited me out to dinner. We ended up grabbing a bite to eat at the IHOP next door. I asked a ton of questions, partly to keep the conversation off me and partially from genuine curiosity. There was something about the 2 men that drew me in, a level of confidence they had in their faith. Was it a coincidence that they found me? Right after I really prayed for the first time in a long time? After I promised Jesus that I would dedicate my life to Him if He got me out of this situation? My life changed over those pancakes. The next day, I checked out of the motel and made my way to Boston. I knew a few people there with connections to San Diego. They were able to find out that the hothead and his crew got arrested, so no one was searching for me. My first instinct was to start looking for new gigs, doing the same thing I was doing before. But then I remembered that moment on my knees offering to change my life. I knew the best way to never end up in that situation again was to follow through with what I had promised. So I gave it up. Instead, I got my commercial driver's license and started driving legitimately. Mostly long hauls across the country. It gives me a chance to see America, not just my little corner in San Diego. I have a statue of Jesus on my dashboard as a reminder that he's always there when I need him, and that I don't have to wait for my lowest moment to ask him for help. I hid under the bed, staring at the strange pair of boots inches from my face when I began to pray. I moved out of home 2 weeks after I turned 18. I did not get along with my stepmom at all. She married my dad when I was 10 and we never had a great relationship, but it only got worse in my teens. Shouting matches were a weekly occurrence at that point, so as soon as I got a chance, I was out of there. I worked waiting tables at the local bar and grill. It wasn't the best job, but I made more in tips than I would have gotten doing anything else. My best friend there was an older waitress named Courtney. I crashed at her place a couple times when things with my stepmom got really bad, so she offered to let me stay with her after I moved out. Courtney's house wasn't great. It was on the rougher side of town, closer to the railroad tracks and trailer park, but it was perfect for me. Sleeping on a couch is still better than waking up to someone who actively tries to make your life miserable. After staying there a few days, Courtney said she had to go out of town for about a week. She was going to be a bridesmaid in her cousin's wedding, so she decided to make a vacation out of it. She was fine with me staying at her house, but she laid out ground rules about no visitors while she was away. I joked that other than her, I didn't have any friends to visit me. I thought it would be fun, living completely on my own for a week, but I quickly realized how quiet a house can be when only one person lives there. I went from the smothering, constant presence of my stepmother to the emptiness of living completely alone, and I wasn't used to it. That Friday night, the restaurant was slammed. I'd never seen that many people in there at the same time. With Courtney on vacation, one of the day shift waitresses filled in, but she wasn't prepared for the chaos of the night shift, so I picked up half of her tables. I was so busy that time flew by, but the tips were pretty huge. I noticed that one older man was staring at me from the end of the bar. The way he looked at me made me feel uncomfortable, but I just stayed busy hoping he would leave. Eventually I lost track of him. I thought he'd left, but then I'd catch glimpses of him in the crowd. But I forgot about him. I had too much on my mind. Then, out of nowhere, I felt a hand grab my shoulder. I spun around to see the older man behind me. He stammered, saying he wanted to buy me a drink, but I told him that he either needed to be sat at a table or order at the bar. He didn't seem happy, but I squirmed out of his grip and hurried away. We closed on time, but ended up staying till nearly 3 a.m. cleaning. Lucky for me, Courtney's house was only a 10-minute walk away. I probably should have been scared walking home alone that late, but I was too tired to be afraid. The road was completely empty, but at one point I thought I heard somebody from behind me. I stopped to look around, but saw nothing. I stared at some bushes down the road and thought I saw a man's shadow, but I blinked and it was gone. I made it to Courtney's house and crashed in her bed, but then I woke up about an hour later, not sure where I was. It took me a second to remember I was in Courtney's house sleeping in her bed. I tried to figure out what had woken me up when I heard it. Footsteps. Courtney's house makes its fair share of noises at night, but I knew this was different. I knew that I wasn't alone. I sat straight up in bed and listened. The footsteps were heavy and slow, making their way through the house while trying not to bump into anything in the dark. Thinking fast, I grabbed my phone and slid off the bed. I rolled beneath the mattress and dialed 911. "What's the nature of your emergency?" I whispered that someone had broken into the house and gave the 911 operator Courtney's address. She said she was dispatching police officers, but right then the bedroom door opened. I put my phone face down on the floor to hide the glow and held my breath. From under the bed, I could only see 2 dirty work boots walking into the room. Courtney had an abundance of pillows on her bed, so it might have looked like someone was still asleep. The boots moved closer to the bed until they were inches away from my face. Terrified, I did the only thing I could think of. I started to pray. I hadn't been to church since my mother died. She was the one who made us go every week. I think it was hard for my dad to go back without her. And my stepmother wasn't religious, so she didn't push it either. But everything came back to me as I cowered under the bed. I begged God to help me. I apologized for everything I'd done wrong. I even acknowledged how awful I acted towards my stepmom. She wasn't perfect, but I went out of my way to aggravate her. Then I ran out of things to apologize for. I just started repeating the Lord's Prayer in my head. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. The boots moved again as the person grabbed at the bed. I tensed as I saw pillows and blankets thrown on the floor. I held my breath, terrified about what was going to happen next. Then, pound, pound, pound. I heard someone beating on the front door, followed by a man's voice. Police, open up! I screamed, help, he's in the bedroom! The boots turned to run, but I heard the sound of the police kicking open the door. They shouted, freeze! Followed by the sounds of a struggle. I didn't move until a police officer entered the room and knelt down next to the bed. You can come out now, we've got him. I was shaking when the police officer helped me to my feet. We walked outside and I saw the old man in the back of their police cruiser. It was the same old man from the bar. The cops said he probably waited outside the restaurant and followed me home. Who knows what would have happened if I hadn't heard him and woken up. The cops took me home where my dad and stepmom waited for me. I gave them both big hugs. My stepmom didn't expect that. I'm not saying our relationship is wonderful now, but it's a lot better. I moved back home and the shouting matches are a thing of the past. I also started going to church again. It felt good to be back in the pews where my mother sat, listening to the pastor's sermons. I still thank God for answering my prayers and getting the police there in time to save me from that lunatic. Since returning from my last deployment overseas, I developed a chronic stomach condition. It can make me vomit violently and uncontrollably at times. The condition also affected my ability to carry a child. I already had a son from before my service, but my husband and I wanted to try for another child since I finished my time in the military. But none of my pregnancies survived, no matter what treatment or medication doctors prescribed. After a few years, we gave up. There were only so many attempts you can make before it weighs on you, heavily. We moved on with life, accepting the fact that this was the way God decided things should be. Then, when my son was 12, I got pregnant again. My husband and I decided not to tell anyone because we assumed this pregnancy would end like the others. A week after we found out, my family attended the christening of my cousin's newborn son. I sat in the church, watching them stand at the altar with him, and I thought about the life inside of me. That night, I had a dream about standing at the altar with my husband and son for the christening of my daughter. I woke up in pitch darkness. It was the middle of the night and my husband was snoring in the bed next to me. I went into the bathroom, got on my knees, and started to pray. God, please, get my baby here safely. Let her be healthy. I'll do whatever you ask. Then I heard a response. It was a single word, but I heard it clearly. A deep, strong voice talking directly into my mind. It said, Isabella. I never considered that name before, and I was surprised when I heard it, but I promised God that if He allowed my baby to be born, I would name her Isabella. From that point on, I never doubted my daughter would be born. I continued to pray every night for God to protect her. Months passed without any complications. Even my doctor was amazed. Pretty soon, it went from my husband and I not telling anyone to us having to say something. My belly was hard to miss. Whenever anyone asked what they could do, I only had one answer: pray. I never stopped praying myself, but not as frantically as I had been before. Long story short, on April 19th, we stood in front of the church for Isabella's christening. I found out the name means given to God, and it couldn't be more perfect. She was perfect. I know people will think I'm crazy, but God did speak to me that night. I heard his call to name my baby Isabella, and I followed it without question. Now she's here, healthy and happy. Make of it what you will, but I say she is proof of the power in prayer and the glory of God Almighty.